Hello everyone. The purpose of this video is to explore different authentication types which can be used to call an integration flow from SAP Cloud Integration in Integration Suite from an external system such as S/4HANA or any other third-party system. Um, it basically there are multiple authentication types such as username and password, a client ID and secret, and so on, and certificate based that we will explore in this video. So to begin with, let me show you the SAP help page. Right now I'm in SAP Integration Suite, and I have done some um, preparations with regards to some integration flows. So I have some integration flows which I will use in this video. And in order to explore those authentication types, let's see the SAP help documentation first. So if I go to SAP help documentation, and if we take a look at this official documentation, we can see that for configuring inbound communication to SAP Integration Suite, which is like a third-party system calling an iFlow. So mostly HTTP connections, let's say, or SFTP connections, or a SOAP connection, or let's say IDOC connection from SAP S/4HANA, and so on. So in that case, there are multiple authentication types. So if we take a look at setting up inbound HTTP connections for integration flow processing, we can see there are mainly four types of authentications. First is client ID, the client certificate. Then there is OAuth, open authentication, which requires an access token and then authentication using the token. And then we have basic authentication using client ID and client secret. And then we have basic user, like a username and password, for which we required IDP in SAP Cloud Identity Services. So let's talk about each one of them. So we will cover all of them. And I've also broken down this client certificate into two subcategories that I will show with my small example here. So we have these authentication types mainly, as I mentioned earlier. So OAuth. So first we will explore this one, and then we have basic authentication with the client ID and client secret, and then basic authentication using an IAS user, and then we will further explore the more complex setup using client certificates. So we can generate a certificate within SAP BTP, which is like a default scenario. And then we can also have already available certificates from third parties. So let's say a third party application says that, yeah, we will provide our own certificate and you need to use that one. So we can also use that. So in that case, they will provide us a PFX file or a P12 file. Let's say slash P12 file with the passphrase that we can use. So let's check all of them. So let's start with Auth first, and before that, let's quickly see the setup in Integration Suite. So if I go there in my Integration Suite tenant, this is my trial account. So this is completely personal, but I will share all of these in my GitHub repo. Yeah, so I have a package here, sandbox package. Let's just quickly open this. I've got a few tabs open. Let me just close all of them. Yeah, and then I have several iFlows. Let it be okay. Let those logs be okay. Yeah, so basically what I've done is I've created a very simple integration flow with just an HTTP incoming connection. So there's a sender. Let's say in this case, the sender will be Postman. So I have a Postman client installed in my machine. So I will use Postman to call an HTTP URL to invoke this iFlow. So if I just show you this HTTPS connection, so this is a sender adapter with just HTTP ping So just endpoint. So I can put anything here. This could be anything. So that I want to specify, and it has to be unique. So in every iFlow, by default, there's a user role. So if I should show you edit mode. So by default, there's an option to use user role or client certificate. I've used user role, and there's a default user role is ESP messaging send. So it's not that relevant. It will appear by default anyway. You just need to specify address. And then in the response of this iFlow, I'm just setting a body. So hello from this trial account, and then I'm setting some dynamic response parameters just to make sure that I can get the right context of the response and uniquely in each request response. Yeah, so I'll just cancel this. So likewise, I have created several iFlows. So they're all same with just different endpoint. So for example, OAuth, I have just given a different endpoint here. So connection call iFlow with OAuth and so on. So if I show you the others, so I have like client ID secret, basic user, SAP certificate, external certificate, and so on. Just to, I can also use one iFlow for all those authentication types, but just to keep them separate and for better understanding, I just created different ones. But and if I show you in integration monitor, I can see that I have deployed all of them, and all these are deployed, and you can see an endpoint URL for all of them. Yeah, so for example, call using iFlow, Auth, call iFlow with client ID secret, and so on. So there are different URLs. So let's quickly get into Postman and let's make a call. I already have a client ID secret for time being. Let's just start with that just to show you how the response will look like. And then I have dynamically set the tenant URL via environment variable. So if you don't see the full URL because it's coming via your a variable. And then in my username, there's a client secret, and password is the client secret, and the client ID and secret basically here. And if I just click on send, you see, oh, okay. I think I'm using a wrong one, maybe. Anyway, we'll see. Maybe I'm using a wrong value, or maybe it has changed since I called it last time. But nevertheless, let's start with the first scenario. So we are going to use authentication types here. In this case, OAuth 2. And how do we use it? So first we need authentication. For authentication, we need a service key, or let's say credentials. So where do we get the credentials? So basically, we have only an iFlow here, but how do we provide a third party a user credential? Okay, we need to provide some username and password or some certificate or something that the caller will use while calling this URL, right? So for that, we need access to sub account. So a BTP sub account. So I'm in the BTP sub account where I have my integration suite tenant. And in order to generate credentials, I need an instance of service process integration runtime. I already have one, but let's just quickly start with a new one. So assuming that you already have integration suite in your tenant, and then you have already have the entitlement, you can now start with process integration runtime. So you just need to create an instance of process integration runtime. This comes along with integration suite, so there is no separate cost for this. So integration flow, choose plan integration flow because you want to call integration flows via this. Yeah, and then just put a name. So integration suite runtime of let's say for iFlows or something. I already have one, but I want to create a new one. And in this case, by default, there's only one role from SAP, and that's already selected. Grant type client credentials is okay because we cannot generate passwords here anyway. So that will be done separately. So let's quickly click on next, create. And then while this is being created, let me quickly show you something in the meantime. So if I go back to my slide, so you see first we will try with the OAuth, open authentication, and then we can use the same OAuth credential as basic authentication as well. So this is kind of a privilege that we can use OAuth like a username and password as well. So now this is created. So let's quickly create a service key. So I'll put a service key called CI underscore auth, and then I'll just choose client's ID secret. We also have certificate and external certificate. We will use both these as well, but let's start with this first. Just put a name here and then create. You don't need to do anything else here. Leave everything default and it will create. It's taking a bit of a time, but I think it's now ready. So now you see I have this JSON with the credentials. So I have client ID, client secret, token URL, which will provide access token, a URL of this tenant, and then yeah, there's a date. It's okay. So what I need for OAuth is client ID secret and token URL. So first I'll go to Postman. And here I have chosen authentication type. Let's say if I choose authentication type no auth, then there's nothing here, but I want to use OAuth 2.0. And then I need to provide a token. And to get a token, I can just scroll this down and I need to get a new token. So let's say CI new token. Let's say I just put any name here and I need to provide grant type client credentials. Yeah, this is very important. And then you need to provide access token URL. So this is the token URL. I go to form view where it is easy to copy. So copy this, put the token URL here, client ID, put that one here, and client secret, copy that and put this one here. So these are the three things we will need. And then I will generate a new token. So I got a token now, look good. I use this token. So I have a token that is stored in Postman and I can reuse this token in the subsequent calls as well if I like. And then you see there's a validity for the token. So this will expire, let's say in 1 hour. Yeah. So now if I use this token and make a request, I hopefully it will work. Yeah. So you see I got 200 okay. And you see the endpoint, it comes dynamically call iFlow with OAuth. So it's hitting the right endpoint. And I also get message processing log. And if I go to message processing log in my monitoring, so if I go to monitor integration monitor, if I put this message processing log, I will see that, yeah, this is indeed for the call for this auth iFlow. Yeah. So this is one. So this is how you use OAuth. So now I have a token, and then we can also refresh the token. So we can, if you like, so it can refresh the token. So I don't need to provide the client ID secret every time. It can automatically refresh. So now I can again call this, and I will get another message processing log ID, and then here I can simply see that okay, this was called 2 times now already. Yeah. And then now if I go back to my slide and I show you that there is first we tried auth with client credentials. Let's move to the next one. So with basic authentication with client ID and secret. So this looks a bit complicated, right? So for those who have just used basic authentication always, so if there's also a possibility to use that. So I move to the next iFlow, which is typically the same, just calling this another endpoint. But in this case, for the authorization, I'm going to use client ID and secret. So I'll just use my environment variable for secret, and I'm going to set the same client ID and secret from my instance. So if I copy the client ID, just to be sure that I'm using the latest one, and secret, yeah, okay, and then I first save this, sorry, and then if I send this, so I'm just using basic authentication, and in the username and password I'm putting the client ID and secret respectively. And now if I send, yeah, it works as well, and you see it shows you the correct endpoint as well. And then again, if I go back to the message processing log, you will see now a new message here. Sorry, here. You see now this one was called successfully with my client ID and secret. So these two were the most frequently used and very basic authentication types for Integration Suite. Now we will switch to basic authentication with IAS user. So what if, let's say, we don't have a possibility to use OAuth in a third-party system, or let's say even SAP system. We don't have any possibility, or we can use username and password, but there is a length restriction. So maybe the username can only be 30 characters or 20 characters or like that. So this, you see the client ID is quite long. So in that case, what we need is a shorter username and preferably a password for that. Yeah? Now, how do we achieve that? We don't have any option in BTP sub account to create a username and password. We cannot do that here. So if I create, let's say if I choose here, if I want to create a username and password, I don't have an option here. I don't have it. So how do I do that? So in that case, I need to make use of Cloud Identity Service. So the Cloud Identity Service is also in the same sub account. I have a service called Cloud Identity Service. Probably you are already aware of that. Otherwise, it's a service where we maintain users. So typically in organizations, there's always this CIS or IAS. Previously, it was called IAS. So there's already a tenant, and then we can manage users here, and then we can sync those users with our sub account. So what if I show you this? So I am an administrator of this tenant. I have my own user here, and what I can do here is first thing to create a technical user. So I will create a technical user here. So I'll put let's say a demo user for SAP. Yeah, whatever. And then I'll just use this email address here, and then login name same. Type doesn't matter. External, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I can just put anything. And then because this is a dummy email, I cannot send an activation email. Mostly for actual users, we always send an activation email and the users will set their own password. But in this case, I will just set an initial password because this is just a technical user. So I will set a password. So I'll just copy this for time being, demo user password. Yeah. Now, please note, I need to change this password to a different password because this is an initial password. So I cannot use this from any external system unless I change the password. And another important thing is, sorry, that if you see the email is not verified. So unless the email gets verified, this user cannot be used. So because there is no, this is a dummy email, I can verify here manually here. This is very important to tick this. This should be ticked. So for actual users, it will be verified when they really set the password for themselves. But for technical users, we can do it here. Now we have set this. Now I have a user. I have an initial password. But before I can use it, I need to change the password. So what I need to do for that, I need to open IAS tenant. This is an administrative mode, but I need to go to user mode. So I'll open an incognito window, and then let's cancel this. And here I need to put the same demo user ID and the demo user password. This is the initial password. Yeah. And then I need to change it here. Just like we get change our SAP password for the first time for ourselves. I'll set something new here. Maybe it's okay. Demo user, let's say 9999. Yeah. Now I'll use this one. Yeah. So now my password is changed, and this is the password that I need to use. So let's try this. Okay. Now I'll copy this user and I go to Postman, and with my another iFlow for basic IAS user, I put the username here and I put the password here. Huh? You can also set them username and password in like environment variables so that you don't hardcode them like this. So I put a username here, and then I think I've already set it, but anyway, I have the username, and for the password also I have an environment variable, and I will change the password quickly. Yeah. Okay. Now let's try to call this, and it will fail. Forbidden. It failed because this user does not have enough authorization. So you see the error is not unauthorized, it's forbidden. So user was able to call the tenant, but it was not authorized to call the message. Sorry, to call the iFlow. So let's see. So it was not able to call because it does not have authorization to call an iFlow. So if I use, let's say, a different password, let's say I just remove these, and then I call this as get unauthorized because this is incorrect password. But if I use correct password, even then I cannot use it. So it will fail, which means I need to provide some authorization to this user. Now that authorization is a very special thing, which I will get from SAP documentation. So here, if I go to this section, basic authentication of IDP user, yeah, here we have identity provider, that was the IAS. So we go here and then just read the documentation. We need a special role for this that we need to assign. So if you take a look, we need to create a role collection in our BTP sub account with a role messaging send. This role has to be assigned to this user. So this is a very important step. So we have a user in IAS, but the user is useless unless it has any roles. So what we need is, let's copy the username. And then we go to back to sub account and go to users. And I need to add this user here, or I think it will automatically come. Yeah, so this automatically came in my sub account. And why it came, that's also a tip. I can give you a tip that it came automatically because this my IAS tenant here has an option to create shadow users on logon. So when this user logged on for the first time, it was already added. If this option is off, then you need to add this user yourself here, like using create and add that email ID. Yeah, and then create. So then it will be added here. Okay. But I already have it, but you see this user has no role collections. So it has nothing. It cannot do anything. So we need to give a role collection for messaging send, but we don't have a role collection for messaging send. Unfortunately, SAP has not provided a role collection out of the box. There's only a role, but role cannot be assigned to a user directly. It is assigned via role collections. So we need to create a collection first. So you see these are the role collections, and if I search for messaging send, you will not find anything, right? So let's just create one. So I'll put role name as pi underscore, this is messaging send, let's say. I'll put this custom role for iFlow, let's say. Yeah, and then I create this PI underscore messaging send, and I need to add a role here. So I need to add this role. I can search the role here, role name, messaging send. So I choose this role, I add this role, and then I save it. Now this role collection has to be assigned to that user. So I can either assign it here itself, I can add that user, or better I go to my user list because I don't remember the user ID, of course. So let's go back to users. Just cancel this here. I go back to user, I go to role collections, then I click on those three dots. If I make it a bit bigger, you will see the assign role collection here as well. Click, search for that role. This is the only role we need to assign. We don't need any other role for integration suite. No display role, no developer or other administrative role, etc. Just need this. Okay. Now we have given the role. We have given like this user access to the sub account and also to the iFlow. So now if I try to call this again, it should hopefully work. It's again forbidden. I think what I need, maybe I need to close this and start again. I think I should open the Postman one more time. So let's see quickly, let's verify the user. So the user has this role. The user has password is set verified. And another thing is that in the legal, make sure that there's policy is standard, which is password never expires. So I think this is okay. Let's quickly try it out. I think there's some cache or something. If I show you the cookies, let's okay. Is there any cookie? There's no cookie here. Okay. So if I send this again, okay, this failed. This was not supposed to fail. Let's see what happened. Okay, maybe I'm choosing the wrong password. No, the password is correct. Let me think. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention with this basic user, there is a condition that when we create a new user, due to the caching mechanism in SAP Cloud Integration, it can take up to 1 hour until the role changes are considered. So since we just created this user and assigned the role, it might take some time. So let's come back after 1 hour on this. Okay. Okay. So now it's been already more than 1 hour, a lot more actually. Now let's try again. If my iFlow will be called with the IAS user. So last time it was failing because the role was still not updated in the user. So now I'm going to call it again. This is my user and my password, and now I'm going to send a new request. And this time it's okay. So you see, I was able to call this iFlow with this user and password. And you can see the correct endpoint as well. It's coming. Let's quickly also check if I can see any message in the message log. So I go to integration and API message monitoring. And you see I've called it successfully. Of course, I did a few runs earlier as well. So this is working perfectly okay. So just to summarize this authentication type, the basic user password. We just need a user in IAS that we have here. We create a user, we set initial password, we verify the email address using the verify email option here in the user. We set a new password. For that, we just need to log in into this IAS tenant with this demo user or the technical user that you will create. And then we just need to create a new role collection in the sub account, and we assign that role collection messaging send. It could be anything. You put any name here. So we have only one role assigned to this, and this role has only one role collection has only one role messaging send. So that's it. And after that, it should work fine for you. Yeah. So we'll continue now to the next one. So now we can try with the next authentication type, which is certificate-based authentication. So if I go back to the slide and I go to client certificate, so we can use certificate-based authentication between an external system and a CPI or Integration Suite. So instead of using any username and password or client secret, we can use public private key pair, which is more secure and it is hard to crack. So which is also a recommended way for productive systems. So we can generate certificates in our BTP sub account, which are SAP signed by SAP, or we can also use external ones. So we'll check both of them. How do we use that? So let's start with first one. So if I go back to my to this help page, and you see here we have the certificate based authentication. So how to configure client certificate and how it works. So for that we need client certificate based. So there is like SAP certificate, or we can use external certificate, and so on. So this is a lot of theory given here, but we'll see in practice. So what I will do is, first thing first, I need a certificate. How do I get a certificate? So I go back to my BTP sub account. I go to my instances, and for the instance of process integration runtime, so I have this process integration runtime. I have service key. So now I'll create another service key. This time I will put name as, let's say, SAP certificate, and then this time I will choose certificate. So I'm not going to choose a client ID secret, but certificate. So this will generate a certificate for me. I'll just leave the validity by default for 1 year. That means this will expire in 1 year, and then it has to be renewed again in 1 year. And let's just leave everything default. There are different key sizes, but let's just use 2048, which is default setting, and then just create. Yeah. So now once this is created, we will get the certificate details. Just quickly wait for a few seconds. Yeah, so it is created now, and I can see that this JSON contains a very long string of certificates, because there are 3 certificates in this, and then there is also a private key, which is like a secret. So this secret has to be kept secretly within the caller. So the caller, for example, Postman. So Postman needs this. So this is how Postman will verify that, hey, I'm a genuine caller, and I'm not making any security breach. So we need to provide this to Postman, or let's say another third-party system. So first is we need a certificate. So we need a public key. So this certificate is public key. A public key is any public key. For example, this PTP sub account. So there is a certificate here. You see this? If I click on this certificate, so this is a certificate which is used by BTP sub account. Yeah, and then this is signed by DigiCert, which is an intermediate certificate, and this is the root certificate. So every certificate has this chain so of 3 certificates. So this is called certificate chain. So primary certificate, intermediary certificate, and then root certificate. Yeah. So I will get all these 3 in this one. So this is a text that I need to copy. So let's copy this certificate. So I copy this in a notepad. I use notepad plus plus. This is better for editing. So you see I get this very long string. So we don't need to be too much worried about this, the content of this. We just need to format this a little bit. So this is a certificate in binary format. So what I need is just need to format this. So quickly, you see we have a begin certificate and then this ends here. So this is first line, and then we have end certificate here with this dashes. So then again begin, but then it has to be like here. It has to be broken here, begin certificate. So I just need to break this quickly, and I'll format this. This is very important to format it correctly, because I know how this certificate looks like. So when we open in the text format, so this is how it should be. If you're not familiar with this, just follow this. That there's always a begin certificate, 5 dashes before this, 5 dashes after this, and the end certificate, begin, end, begin, end. So the first one is the primary certificate, second one is the intermediary certificate, and third one is the root certificate. So we have the certificate chain. I'll just save this certificate chain in the integration suite folder. Yeah. And then here okay, so if I just quickly do this here yeah, I will just save this as a SAP certificate public key .crt. This is a certificate, so .crt or CER. So I'll just save this SAP certificate public key. This is the public key, and then save it. And now the next thing is I need a key. So similarly, I'll copy this key. I go back to Notepad. I open a new file. I get a key. So you see here, this starts with begin RSA private key and end RSA private key. So this is a key. I also need to save this. And then here it will be begin. Sorry, this will be again a new file, SAP certificate. This is a private key. So we name it as private because this is supposed to be only with the caller, and the extension will be .key file. Okay, and then we close this, and then we have these two. So now we have both public and private key, which is like a username and password. Now we need to go back to Postman and then we need to update this in Postman. But how do we do that? We don't have any option to update certificate here. We need to do that in settings. So in Postman settings, there is a section called certificates. I had a certificate earlier, which I will just remove and we'll do it again. So click on add certificate. And first thing is we need a URL. So the URL for which this certificate should be used. And that URL will come from our endpoint. So if I go to, let's say, SAP certificate, this endpoint, we have this endpoint, right? So we don't need the whole endpoint. We just need like the text after // from here till the ondemand.com. That's it. This is the host. The rest is like an endpoint, but we just need the host. So this host is this. We just need to put this here. And then we need to provide the CRT file, which is CRT certificate, and the key file, which is the key file. That's it. So we have provided these two. And now I'm not going to use any authentication here, no authentication, which means this Postman will check there's no authentication provided here. So then it will go to the certificate and check is there any certificate maintained for that host, and then it will find that certificate and it will use that one to authenticate. And that certificate, if you talk about the authentication, like the authorization, this certificate is under this instance, this process integration runtime instance, which already has this role, ESP messaging send. So we will not have any authorization issue, hopefully. Let's see. So I will call this, and wow, this worked like a charm. So you see, I have no authentication here. I just use my certificate, and the certificate I got from my BTP sub account. So everything I could manage myself. So now instead of Postman, I can just give that certificate public key, private key to the third party system, and then they can just call the iFlow to send any data, or yeah, whatever they want to do with that iFlow, depending on the business use case, of course. So this is done. Yeah, perfectly working. Now we can use the same technique with the external certificate. So assume that the third party says, you need to use our own certificate. Yeah, we cannot use your certificate. We will provide you a certificate. So if they provide you a certificate and you need to use that one, so for that you need to do something as well. So for example, I have a certificate here. So let's say I have this PFX file. So mostly they will give you a PFX file or a P12 file. So if I just put this correction here, so this is the scenario. So PFX or slash P12. In that case, you will get a passphrase, which is like a password. So for example, if I try to open this PFX file, I need to say, if I try to import this certificate in PFX file, I get a password. I need to ask me for a password. So I get the password from the sender, third party. What I can do is I can also upload this certificate in my BTP Cloud Integration Suite in Monitor. This is an optional step for this, but this will be used later on in some other scenarios. Yeah. So we go to key store. So this is the key store where we maintain certificates. So I can also maintain that third-party certificate here. So I can create, I can add SSH key. I can add a key pair. Let's see. SSH key. No, I need to add key pair. Sorry. Yeah, and then I put an alias called, let's say, my own PFX file. Yeah, anything you like. I choose the file of this file, PFX file, and then password, of course. So I get this password from the third party which sent me the certificate. And then it will be uploaded here. So anyway, so coming back to that, so for that we can use this PFX file. So what we need is, while this is happening, let's try to use this PFX file in a Postman, because again, for us Postman is the client, so we need this file in Postman. So what I will do, I will go to settings, certificates. I will remove this previously created certificate because I want to use the third party certificate now. So I will again provide the URL that will come from my endpoint. Okay, this is done, but anyway, let's close this. So I will just get this again, the endpoint, and I will use the PFX file this time. Yeah, the PFX file. I will use this PFX file, passphrase. Of course, I need to enter that, and then I add it. So password was okay. If password was not okay, then it would have given me a prompt, some warning. So I have the password, but again, I just have a certificate. This doesn't have the role to call the iFlow, right? So we also need to let Integration Suite know that this user will be calling an iFlow, right? So again, we need to provide some kind of access to this certificate user, let's say. We call it a user. So this has to be registered in the sub account with the proper role. So for that, what we need is the public key. So the public key is basically like a username. Yeah. So if I click on this, the certificate that I uploaded here, I can download the public key. If I download the public key, the certificate chain, let's say. So I can download the certificate. Maybe I just need to download the certificate itself. Certificate integration suite. Then here I need to just say this. Yeah, my own PFX file, whatever. CER, CRT, both are same. Yeah. And then if I open this, you will see the details. So that you see this is a certificate issued by SAP. So it was issued to me by SAP. And you see this is SAP certificate. But this can be any third party also, like Google or Amazon or DigiCert, Global Trust or whatever. Then it's okay. Now I have my own PFX file, and if I go to my iFlow, my integration suite, I have this here. Yeah, you can see all the details here, and I need to go to my sub account runtime. I need to create a service key. I need to provide a name ci underscore ext certificate, and then I need to choose external certificate. So this time this is an external certificate, and I need to put that certificate here. So basically what I'm doing is I'm letting my sub account know that, hey, this certificate will try to call you, so allow it. So I need to open this CER file in Notepad, and I get the similar, the begin and end certificate that we talked earlier, and copy that, and I just need to provide this here. This may look a bit awkward that I'm putting such a long string here, but this is how it is. And then that's it. So now I just create. And I think with this one, it should be okay. And just to show you, so these are all the iFlows, and this external certificate also looks the same. So if I show you this iFlow as well, it is basically same iFlow like I had used the other ones. And then you see just an iFlow certificate. So if I try to call this now, I think I have this. So this is created. Now if I try to call from the Postman, so let's quickly verify the certificate. So go to settings, certificates, and I have the PFX file. Perfect. Now let's try to call this. Sorry, external certificate. Let's just try to call this one and then send. Yeah, so now I was able to call with that external certificate as well. As I mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter which tenant I'm calling, because ultimately which iFlow I'm calling, because ultimately it is hitting the same tenant, but I'm just creating different iFlows for demonstration. So you see now I was able to use my external certificate for authentication. So just to just to repeat, the private key, which is like a password, has to remain only with the caller, and the public key has to be known to the BTP sub account, so that it gets the authentication uh, correctly done with the authorization. So it has the authorization with this role messaging sent. Yeah, and that's it. So with this, we have now covered all the different authentication types that are commonly used. And uh, I'll put this link to this SAP help page and the video description as well, so you can access this. Happy to help. Thank you so much for watching.